Good to get a win Saturday, and had a really good day today of practice. Probably best Tuesday we've had maybe this season, certainly in a while. So it was good to get back out, and guys practiced well today in a good frame of mind, and know that we're in for a big challenge Saturday. I think, you go look at the history between, BYU and West Virginia. I think going into last year, we'd lost 4 games in a row against them, and had a really hard-fought game last year up in Morgantown. We were fortunate to win, and so we know it's been a tough game for TCU in the past. This is a good football team, a team that is playing with a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum. Had a really good win against Pittsburgh, and then obviously a really good conference win against Texas Tech last week. They're playing really physical, playing really hard, and they look like a typical, West Virginia tough football team. So we'll have our hands full Saturday, and we're excited to have a good week of preparation, and hopefully we'll play our best Saturday evening.
We've talked about the install of the defense from last year to this year, maybe more. And when you install a new offense like you did starting in the spring,
yep.
I mean, is it safe to say now, 4 weeks in, there's still not everything in, or is everything in?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The way we do it is
we kind of throw everything at them during fall camp. And so, pretty much anything that we're going to put in this season, for the most part, we've repped at some point, during fall camp. And so, in a lot of ways, fall camp is a little disjointed just because there's so much install that happens. And so we kind of pick and choose things that we're going to feature during the week. But there'll be a couple of new things every week. But most of the stuff we've repped. But you know how it is, the thing that takes the most work sometimes offensively is just learning how to play within the system. In other words, getting lined up quickly and getting the calls. And we still had some instances where that bit us on Saturday. For example, we had an illegal shift penalty where our tight end's putting his hands on the ground while we're motioning a wide receiver. And, those are the kind of things that you just have to not do. And so there's still some of that stuff happening that we have to get fixed and we have to get cleaned up. But, for the most part, most of the stuff is in. And, we've had a chance to cycle through it at some point. And like I said, depending on what we see that week, we'll kind of feature one thing or the other.
Monty Bailey's leading the Big 12 in rushing. Is this kind of what you guys envisioned when you named him starter running back?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think going into the season, just based on his performance last year, when he had opportunities last year, it seemed like he always performed well. Going into the season, he was really consistent from a practice standpoint this fall camp. And he's probably, honestly, been our best practice player week in and week out, day in, day out. So I'm not surprised. Typically guys that practice at a really high level play at a really high level. And, he just hasn't missed many reps. He's been available, and he just keeps improving every single day. And if anything, we've had to limit his load, in practice, because he's always there. He's always available. He wants to go. He wants to get reps. He wants to get better. He's one of those kids that you have to rein him in a little bit. Otherwise, he's going to be, by himself working on things in the weight room or in the indoor facility or on days off. And so you have to, in some ways, try to hold him back the best you can. But I think coming into the year, we felt like he had a chance to have a good year, and he certainly has performed that way up to this point.
When you look at West Virginia's defense, Coach, where do you see their strengths at?
Well, it's kind of typical West Virginia defensive front. They're good up front. They're big and they're strong and they play hard and they're very physical. So to me, that's kind of where it starts. I think that's really the mentality of their football team is kind of built on that. I don't see a weakness defensively. I mean, I think that's the thing. Typically, when you go into a week and you start looking at teams and you go, yeah, we want to go after this guy, or we want to attack that guy, or they're not good at this, you can't play this. You don't really see much of that from West Virginia. I mean, they're just a really solid defensive football team. They tackle well. Yeah, I mean, they had some bad stuff happen to them against Penn State. Obviously Penn State's a good football team. I think that, I think probably similar to us, I think they've just got better. I think they played a pretty good opponent week 1 and probably didn't play their best game and have had a chance to get back on track then and, played well against Duquesne and like I said, have just continued to get better really on both sides of the ball. I think that's been probably key to their improvement is you can just see game to game they get better offensively, they become more certain of who they are and their identity and kind of the same thing on defense.
Coach, talk us through Namby's transition from safety to linebacker and give us just a little bit of insight into some of the difficulties about that type of position.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it's kind of like playing tight end in an offense where you have to have a bunch of different skill sets. You have to be able to cover, and so the fact that he moved from safety to kind of nickel outside linebacker was it was a natural transition for him, and I think it really helped him that he understands coverage, he understands how to play man-to-man coverage, he understands where his help is. I think he really understands that part of that position better than guys that were trained as linebackers. I think he's just understands that. He's got that skill set, but then you have to be big and physical enough to play in the box, and you have to be a guy that, when you see big sets can hold up in a gap and hold up against pulling linemen and tight ends and big people. And so he's just got that unique skill set that can do it all. And, that transition's like most. I mean, he didn't play great week 1, played better week 2, played, better week 3, and probably played his best game week 4, and he just keeps getting better and better every single week, and I expect that same thing to happen through the course of the year.
They have some uncertainty at the quarterback spot. Are you guys preparing for 2, or how do you?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think you have to prepare for both. I'm not sure quite exactly what we're going to see yet. If you guys know, let me know. But I think you have to always prepare for both, and I think their skill set's somewhat similar. I mean, it's not like they're completely, totally different guys. Obviously one's left-handed, one's right-handed, which makes things a little bit different. But that part of it is unique. The fact that they are fairly similar, but they do have different strengths and can do different things.
The wins, you said practice has been better. That's Tuesday practice.
Yeah.
Does momentum carry into practice from a win?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a combination of things. For us last Tuesday, our guys came out with a good mindset. We were just really, we had a late night, Saturday night. We got home at, 3 o'clock in the morning, and by the time, most of us went to bed, it was probably 4 or 5 a.m. And we played on turf, and we played, we were really not in a great place on Tuesday. Took us till probably Wednesday before we started moving around better. And playing an early game Saturday, playing on grass, and then we practiced on Sunday. The thing that we do typically is if we win a conference road night game, we give them the next Sunday off. Still have meetings and all this stuff, but we don't practice. So it was good for us to get out there on Sunday. We actually got a lot of work done Sunday, and the players were excited to get out there, and they had a really good mentality at practice. And I think in some ways that helps make the Tuesday practice better. And so I think we saw that today, and really liked the way the guys practiced today. I mean, you could tell it was important to them. You could tell they were into it. I think they have a lot of respect for West Virginia. I think they've seen the film and they know what kind of football team they have. And they know, how well we're going to have to play to have a chance to win.
Who have you seen from practice that's really stood out to you the most so far?
Well, I mean, it's the guys that have played well. It's Amani, it's Bud Clark. Jamoy Hodge has practiced well. Shad Banks, I think, starting to practice well. Paul Ilawali practicing really good. Dom's practicing good. Just the guys that have played, starting to play well. I'm really liking, what I'm seeing from Channing and Mason. think, Savion is really kind of starting to practice at a high level. You know, Curtis, I mean, those tight ends have practiced well, all year. So, so that's those kind of guys. And then, I think the quarterbacks, have been really steady. And so that's kind of the, that's just kind of always been my history is you go and your teams practice hard and they take a lot of practice, they take a lot of pride in practicing well. And it's tough, competitive practices, and they enjoy it. And guys really practice hard, and those guys start having a lot of success in practice, and it just seems to carry over to the games. And it's the same thing individually, and it's kind of the same thing collectively.
Not suggesting that this week is that, but in years past when you would play at an academy like Navy or Air Force and other places, all year long you would have to stop down at some point and kind of go over it, just kind of refresh and keep it active. Is there an offense in the Big 12 that is different to the point where?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind would probably honestly be Kansas. Kansas does so kind of a lot of unique things. We don't play them this year, but they're one of those teams that you kind of have to try to get a little bit of a head start on them if you can, because they're going to show you a lot of different things, a lot of different looks, formations, personnel groupings, unbalanced, a lot of formation in the boundary. I mean, just a lot of different kind of unique things that you don't necessarily see every week.
But nobody on the schedule this year right now.
I'm trying to think anybody that I've seen. Not really. I think you have to prepare for some of the tempo that you're going to see, but again, I think our defense probably sees that from us. I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, we're, second in the country in terms of how quick we're playing, which that's never been a big goal of mine, honestly. You know what I mean? I think some people have always talked about they want to get the most snaps in a game and all that. I just want to win. If that means we get 40 snaps, then great. If that means we get 140, that's fine too.
Does tempo and the rate that you guys are playing at right now impact execution to a degree?
Yeah, it does. I think it makes the game kind of ugly at times. You know what I mean? Just because, if you're not substituting and you stay on a long drive, you look up out there and some guys have been out there 15 straight plays. And now the defense has too. So that's kind of the idea is it turns into ugly football. You know what I mean? And your guys are tired and their guys are tired, and it's kind of a battle of will. And it goes kind of back to the wet field analogy. I've always thought the offense had an advantage on a wet field, where I kind of think it's the same way. If the defense is fatigued and the offense is fatigued, I think the offense has advantage because you know where you're going, and you've run those plays a million times, where as a defense you probably haven't defended that play as many times as you've run it. And so it kind of, you almost go to your default setting in a weird sort of way when an offense is very fatigued and a defense is very fatigued. And so I think it helps. Look, when you can execute well enough to be able to string together long drives, I think it makes it tough on other teams. In particular, like I said, when you're not subbing and they can't sub.
Coach, Dalen practiced today.
Yeah.
And, he didn't play against SMU, and neither did Jack. Do you kind of?
Yeah, both of those guys will be back. Yeah, good. And so, Jack's been sick and did a little bit today. We're going to kind of ease him back into it, and we're trying to do the same thing with Dalen. I think he was available a couple of weeks ago, and I think we probably rushed him back a little bit, and so we decided to be a little more deliberate in bringing him back this time. And he had a setback, and I think now we've got a good plan for him, just to make sure that we don't try to do too much.
How much can those two guys help impact the offense?
We're still looking to have the whole group healthy, honestly. We just haven't had it yet. If practice is indication of it, I think both of them can make a big difference. And I think Jack has made some big plays this year for us, and did in fall camp. And Dalen is still, he got here late, and he's still kind of feeling his way, but he certainly has that kind of potential. I think he's one of those guys that, you kind of say, well, could he take over a game? And that's a possibility.
says about the offense. You guys are averaging over 500 yards a game, 38 points per game, but it doesn't really seem like anybody's really satisfied yet. With
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the numbers are good, but I mean, we've left a lot of points out there. You know, we left, obviously, week 1, 2 interceptions in the end zone. Week 2, fumbled, kind of going in the end zone. Week 3, didn't particularly execute in the red zone as well as we should have. Same thing this past game. We had some short fields that after turnovers and stops and that kind of thing that we didn't capitalize on. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're a long way from playing, at the level that we need to play at. At least we haven't up to this point. My hope is we do that Saturday. But we have been able to score some points, and we have been able to string together some drives and be consistent when we don't shoot ourselves in the foot. Take a sack or have a penalty or something like that. And so the good thing that we did this past week is we didn't turn the ball over, and I thought that was certainly a step in the right direction. So now we've got to fix some of those red zone issues that plagued us a little bit last week, and if we can do that, then I think we'll feel better about where we are as an offense.
About a third of the way through the season now, how would you evaluate and assess how the offensive line has come along over that time?
Yeah, I think it's been good. It's been good. I mean, I think that we're starting to see some other guys that were comfortable enough starting to play. Colton Deary, I think, is a guy that can start to play, and Ben Whitfield, and so I'm starting to see more of that, which is a good thing. I do think that we feel pretty good about 7. I wish we'd feel pretty good about 8 or 9, and I think we're getting there, and I'm starting to see some progress toward that. And we've been a little bit. We were really lucky last year. We stayed really healthy on the offensive line, and this year we've had a little bit. It hadn't been real serious stuff, just kind of been some nagging injuries that we've had to work through, and I think have made our line a little bit less effective maybe than it could be or should be. And so we've just got to get through that stuff and get a little bit more consistency but at times I think we've played well, and I thought certainly we played physical this past game and played with an attitude and really tried to impose our will, and I think that's the kind of football team that we need to be, and again, it always starts up front.
You mentioned Chase Curtis as being a guy that's practiced well. What's kind of been your impression on him, and especially with his background?
Yeah, really. I mean, really great kid. I mean, I just like everything about him. He's a winner. He's a team guy. He's paid his dues. It's never about him. It's always about the team. And he loves to practice. He loves to play. He loves to work out. He's just a football guy. I mean, he's playing the game because he loves playing football. And I think that's so important in today's world. Some of these kids like recruiting more than they like playing, or like the stuff that comes with playing more than they actually like playing, and he just loves playing football. I mean, he really does. It makes him happy. He loves being on the team. He loves TCU. He's all about team, and those kind of guys are incredibly important, especially in today's world when your roster has so many guys that kind of come and go. You have to have those core players that are provide leadership and are completely bought in, and again, just great teammates. And then those guys see him show up every day and work and be unselfish like he is, and it's a great lesson for them. And we're fortunate to have a lot of those guys in our program. Some guys that have been around a lot that have started to have bigger roles and starting to emerge. And like anything else, I think as coaches, we are starting to appreciate them probably more than we did in the past, just because they've done it now and they've done it consistently, and I think we know how important they are to our program.
We'll go 2 more questions.
Coach, you mentioned earlier how you went from Houston and were playing on turf, and you got back here and got to play on grass. Why do you guys prefer grass? Why do you go grass?
I mean, all you gotta do is look at the NFL studies and the stuff that they do now, and the NFLPA really is advocating strongly to play on grass. I mean, I just think you have less injuries. I know this, I can go stand out there for 3 hours in practice and walk off the field and feel good when I stood on grass. If I go in the indoor and stand there for 40 minutes, my back hurts. You know what I mean? And so it's the same thing that some of we used to take our players a lot last season out of the heat, the second half of practice, and go inside and practice. And then the more I talked to the players, they'd rather stay outside in 100-degree weather than go inside in air conditioning and play on turf. And so I think that just shows you what a big difference it is on their body and how they feel and the impact it has on, at least in their mind, on staying healthy and safe. And so we just don't, we don't go in as much as we used to.
Anything else for Coach? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.
Players in next.